Good morning, IVIEW4U. It's your man James Beaudry from the James Beaudry Band here in IVIEW4U. Cheers, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you might be. Today we are going to be joined by Mr. Bruce Jacobs, who played bass for the legendary band Streetheart here in Canada. He was their bass player for about 10 years. On Monday on the show we had drummer of Platinum Blonde, Mr. Daniel Todd. That was a phenomenal interview, a lot of fun. Him and his arm charm Natalie. We got to sit down with them in their home and get a little tour of their house and their little keys. They lock things up all around the world, which is kind of cool with little locks. So we're just waiting for Bruce to join us here, and we'll kick everything off. And here in IVIEW4U, I hope everybody is having a blast and having fun. I know this is my favorite pastime that I love to do. And yeah, everything's all fine and dandy. And we sadly, of course, lost a great musical legend yesterday. Mr. Tom Petty passed away yesterday, and that was it was a great loss to, I think, the music community worldwide. It was definitely something that I think obviously nobody expected. You don't expect stuff like that to happen. He was only 66. But yeah, it's unfortunate. I do a radio show on revolutionxradio.ca, and I know we played a bunch of Tom Petty songs yesterday, and keep his memory alive and keep everything going good. So that is how it goes a lot of the time, Yeah, I'm just waiting here for Mr. Jacobs to join us here live on Facebook. We'll get the interview underway. I hope everybody is enjoying their Tuesday morning. It's Tuesday, right? Yeah, it's Tuesday. I've been so ass backwards. Me and my band played a gig on the weekend there on Saturday. We did an acoustic show. First house party I ever played. It was a house concert, and it was a lot of fun. It was a hell of a lot of fun. We had a blast, and yeah, got everything going, and it was incredible. We played some of our songs, played some covers. Yeah, it's great. We got Bruce here, who's trying to get in on the action, so it'll take a couple more seconds here, and we'll get this going. Other than that, next week we have Mr. Tommy Chong on the show. That one's going to be fun. I'm looking forward to that. And that's how it goes sometimes. Sorry, we're just trying to get Bruce on here to come and join us here. This will be good. Let me just sorry for the delay here, folks. And just trying to get Bruce here, and then we'll kick it into gear. My apologies. It's It's early in the morning for some people. It is for me. Yeah, it's 11. I guess it's not really that early. Let's try this here. Let's get Mr. Jacobs here and let's get him on the show. Sometimes things don't go according to plan or start on time, and that's fine. We're just getting Mr. Jacobs to. There we go. Oh, we figured her out there. So we can kick this into gear, and it'll be looking forward to sitting down and chatting with Bruce here over the next little while. And
Hey,
hello, Bruce.
how are you doing, James? I'm sorry for holding you up.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm well, man. How are you doing?
I'm doing excellent. Just relaxing. Tried to catch up on my beauty sleep, but it didn't help. You can only be so beautiful.
Yeah, I know. You're stretching the boundaries, buddy.
Oh, darn. I try. That's what's important. Look, you're sitting in a car, it
Yeah,
looks
I
like.
am.
Where are you headed to?
Well, this is my second day in my new hometown of Comox, BC, and I just had to run a very quick errand for my girlfriend's daughter, and I happened to pick up a coffee as well. So cheers.
Oh, there we go. Yes, definitely. Cheers. So let's jump right into this here on IV4U. From what I understand, I believe you were born at a very young age, weren't you?
Yeah, I was born like at 0.
Oh, geez.
No,
So
what were you are you asking about when I started to play bass?
no. Where did you grow up? Let's start from when you were itty bitty. Where did you grow up?
Well, I was born in New England. My father's from Vermont and my mother's from Nova Scotia. They got married in the 50s and lived in Vermont initially, and my 2 older siblings and myself were born there. And when I was around 5, yeah, just before I was 5, we moved to Halifax, Nova Scotia, and that's really where I grew up, just
Oh,
outside
right on.
Halifax.
Very cool. When did you make the move? Because I know you just moved from Winnipeg.
I arrived on Sunday night. My girlfriend flew in on Wednesday. I had already shipped all of my things out from Winnipeg, and we drove across the country. Just 2,985 kilometers.
Oh, right on. That's definitely cool. You guys came through Edmonton here and saw some of your friends and stuff. And do you guys
Yes, and I was just
do
going to say I
anything?
apologize. We couldn't stop and say hello.
No, that's all good. We'll catch you another time. I got a good excuse to go to the island now. So,
Yeah, that's right.
did uh did you guys see anything cool on your trip down or?
Well, very lovely weather across, which was very grateful for because I waited kind of late in the fall to move. But just being able to go through the Rockies on days when the weather was quite clear was amazing. I'll never tire of driving through the mountains. I find it very inspiring.
Oh, it is. Well, it's beautiful. I mean, how can you go wrong with a beautiful view in front of you and behind you and to the sides, right?
Absolutely.
So, growing up, did you have any nicknames?
Yeah, I mean, my nickname is Jake, which comes from my last name, Jacobs. But my dad's nickname was Jake. My older brother's nickname was Jake. I mean, it's very common with people named Jacobs, of course. But fortunately, none that were, comment on my abilities or lack of abilities.
That's always good. Do you play any other instruments besides bass?
And playing with ukulele groups out of Halifax. I mean, there's a whole thing about the Halifax music system, but I play ukulele, a guitar, piano, drums. I took drum lessons for several years so that I would be at least able to understand the function of drums and how they feel relative to what I do on the bass. But bass is the only instrument I get paid to perform on.
Hey, right on. So at least if you're needed for drums or ukulele or something, you could potentially sit in.
Oh man, absolutely. No, I've sat in on guitar many times, playing rhythm guitar. I'm not really a practiced lead player or anything.
Oh, very cool. Do you remember the first record that you ever bought?
The first record, well, I don't remember the first record I bought was, well, I should say it was a 45. I didn't buy an LP for my first record. I bought a 45, and it was an April Wine 45 actually. I used to go to Kresge's in a shopping mall in downtown Halifax, and they would have the top 20 hits as 45s hanging on the wall and numbered 1 through 20, and it rotated weekly. But the first LP I got was a gift from a friend, and it was the Chicago Transit Authority, which is
Oh, very
still
cool.
remains one of my favorite bands to this day.
Right on. That's definitely cool to go back. I mean, and now LPs and stuff are coming back, which is even cooler. I mean, there was a time, I don't think they ever went out of fashion, but there was a time when it was just cassettes and it was just CDs.
Jump in our day. That's
Sorry,
okay. Go
I
ahead, James. Yeah, no, because I'm not on Wi, I didn't get a chance to get back to a Wi-Fi spot
oh, no worries, no worries. I'm not sure if that's on your end or my end, but
on my end. But yeah, and you know what? People were going for the most convenient format. Cassettes and 8 tracks were easy to carry around, and then CDs. But the sound of an LP will never go away.
no, that's for sure. That's it. It has such a crisp sound. Everything's just literally in your face. I find at least.
Well, I really embraced. I try to embrace technology both in my professional life and my personal life, and I jumped on the CD bandwagon. But there's just an organic warmth and grind that you get from an LP that you can't get from a digital source.
No, exactly. Uh, when did you first start playing bass guitar, and do you remember the first song you learned?
Well, I played upright bass from the time I was 12. I was started in a youth group in church my older siblings were involved in, and then got involved with the Halifax Music System, which is a citywide system. So you'll take lessons in your local school, and then once you attain enough proficiency, you'll be asked to play with a group, let's say the Jazz Ensemble 5, up to, the sort of number one group. And I went through the ranks very quickly and was playing in the sort of the top orchestra, the top jazz band, the top ukulele ensemble by the time I was 15. And I got a bass guitar that year. It was an Ibanez Telecaster knockoff, which I still remember with great affection. And the first song I really tried to play on it, my brother challenged me or asked me if I could learn to play Black Dog by Led Zeppelin. And so that was like worth a couple of months of effort at the time. But I got it.
Right on. So you go for a hard song first, and then learn the easy ones, or
Yeah, that's right. No, I had already gone through playing, like, I was playing, fairly advanced stage band music at that time. So I read music very well and everything, but I was familiar with harmony. I just had no chops whatsoever on bass guitar.
well, that makes sense. That's Black Dog first song, man. I learned the easiest song I could learn on guitar, and I'm sure that was Smoke on the Water or Seven Nation Army or something, but I couldn't imagine learning Black Dog as my first song.
Well, I was always more of a rocker when I was young. Although I went through, I mean, have played jazz a lot of my life and Celtic music coming from the East Coast. But I really having a strong affection for Yes and Led Zeppelin, the Strawbs, Gentle Giant. Those were the bands that I really listened to a lot in my mid and late teens.
Oh, right on. So lots of influence from the earlier music from the 70s and stuff, I'm assuming.
Absolutely, yeah.
Now, can you still play Black Dog?
Yes, as a matter of fact, I played it just this morning. I got none of my stuff has arrived from Manitoba yet, and I had gifted my girlfriend a Squire Bronco bass that I hot rodded. I'm a guitar tech as well, so I had made it basically into a short scale jazz bass, and it's in place. So it's the only instrument I have to play right now. So that was the first song I played this morning.
Right on. There you go. First song you learn, first song you wake up to play. That's great.
That's right, man.
And it's Zeppelin. I mean, you can't go wrong when you're letting the lead out first thing in the morning, right?
That's right.
Okay. Well, what are the top three bands that you would say influence you the most, and not only on bass, just in general?
I'd have to say like the singer-songwriter thing was more what I was into. So like Stevie Wonder, Elton John, Billy Joel, James Taylor, I was very drawn to the deeper harmony in those performers. I love straight ahead rock, of course, but I really was drawn to, especially with Stevie and Elton John, like very complex harmonic structure, and so one of the things I started to do when I was younger was rather than just learning the bass part, I would try and learn all the chords and all the harmony of the song as well, and understand why the bass was so compelling to me. And it was because they weren't always playing the root notes. They were often playing leading notes that were buried in the chord, like the third or the fifth or the seven, and so yeah, those were the most influential ones for me.
Right on. So you're saying, being it wasn't always root notes. It would be the notes that I guess you could say only a musician would hear listening to songs.
I would say that everybody hears it, but not everybody would understand what it was they were hearing, if you know what I mean. It's like the
No,
difference
that
between
that makes sense.
hearing something and listening to something. They're two different things. So a lot of people listen to music, but only a few people are able to hear and identify, kind of what's inside the harmony of it.
No, exactly. And you're one of those people, I'm guessing.
Well, yeah, I mean, I would say probably like I've been very fortunate to play with people that have deep ears that know about harmony. And so although pop songs or straight ahead rock songs on the surface, they're quite straight ahead in terms of how the chord structures work and everything. I really have been in my heart of hearts, I listen to more complex music than that most of the time. I'll listen to, for example, I went through a period in my late teens where I was a Tower, and I still love them, Tower of Power. And I have a great friend back east, a bass player, an amazing bass player named Bruce Dixon, who actually kind of made his bread and butter touring with Rita McNeil and Rock Flassin and other artists like that. But he's probably the best sort of Rocco Prestia, or the Tower of Power bass player. He can play that stuff like nobody's business. And when I was younger, we used to sit in his bedroom, and he'd grab his sister's turntable that had a spindle on it so you could stack records on it. And we would listen to like 5 Tower of Power records in a row and try and learn the bass parts off them. So
Oh,
yeah, I
very
mean,
cool.
I like complicated music as a rule.
Well, that's good, right? Why play something easy? I mean, challenge yourself a little bit, right?
Well, I wasn't thinking of it so much as like learning Black Dog. I didn't think of it as a challenge so much as just something that I heard and I found compelling and I wanted to learn.
Oh, well, right on. That's very cool. So I know you've been in the Canadian music scene for many years now, and this has to be one of my favorite questions to ask the artists we have on the show because every answer is different, and I
Mhm.
not once have ever gotten the same answer. But what are some things that have changed in the Canadian music scene, and some things that have ultimately stayed the same?
Well, the things that have stayed the same, that's the easy part of your question. Um, People that are compelled to be involved with music. You don't actually, I mean, I don't know many musicians who volunteered to be a musician thinking this is just going to be great, a great way to make a living, because being a musician is probably one of the more challenging parts of the arts that you can become involved in. If you're a dancer, there are a finite number of groups that you can audition for. or parts, roles in movies or musicals. And as an actor, I mean, it's kind of a defined path and very strong support from the professional organizations that you become involved in. Whereas in the music business, you don't have to be a member of the musicians union to be a musician. Anybody that picks up an instrument is a musician. And making a living as a musician, I can remember doing club dates in 1979 or 1980, and I made more per night then than I do now if I play club dates. Like it was easier then because music was more a part of the popular culture. More people came out to see it. So now with the changes you asked, people have such a variety of options now for entertainment with the internet bringing everything you could possibly want to you, including music, that a lot of people don't come out and listen to live music in bars so much anymore. Back in the day, it was mandated that every bar had to have a license that forced them to hire entertainment. So every bar in Halifax, or every city in Canada, for example, every bar had to have a band. It was just a part of the regulations. Nowadays, of course, it's not, you're not coerced into hiring entertainers that you don't necessarily want. And also, I think a lot of bands back then, it was, it's always a labor of love, but it was very competitive, and bands were as good as they could be. And nowadays, I find a lot of the musicians are less rounded. They have less opportunity to perform different styles of music. Like I cut my teeth playing R&B. I have a huge Motown catalog in my repertoire. I know lots of blues. I was involved in many styles of music. And nowadays, a bassist, for example, will start in a style, let's say with an original band, and that's all they play. They never really learn other styles of music. So there's less emphasis, I think, generally in the music business on really getting a sense of a historical perspective for your music or a stylistic perspective through your music. So
Well,
I
no,
hope
exactly.
that's a little bit of a long answer.
No, that's okay. The long answers are my favorite. I love the long answers. No, I hear you there. It's me personally. I mean, not speaking for anybody else. I know I try to always put my eggs in as many baskets as I can musically, whether it's blues or country or rock. I try my very best to uh, hold on to what I'm learning and really get it going, right?
Absolutely. I mean,
Sorry.
I've heard clips of your band. I enjoy your music very much.
Well, thank you, thank you. Sorry, my nose decided to run this morning. That doesn't usually happen. It must be a change in weather.
You guys had snow recently, didn't you?
Hey, yay. No, we had snow yesterday and a couple days ago, and it's just been chilly ever since. It's not I mean the sun's out, but it's not doing anything. It looks more beautiful there than here.
Well, for what it's worth, I'll just give you a view here.
Oh, yeah. There
Green
you go.
grass, green
That's
grass. The leaves aren't even changing here yet.
Oh, all of our leaves are done. Our spring, fall, whatever you want to call it. The time before it gets cold is already here.
Well, yeah, just a part of living in the inner part of Canada.
Exactly. I was told my parents, why did you live in Alberta? You couldn't have lived somewhere hot. Now I'm stuck here and I need to grow up and move.
Well, yeah, as soon as you admit whether you like the weather or not, like Winnipeg, where I lived for the last 14 years, is an amazing city. Some great musicians. I mean, I don't have my readers on, so I can't even see a lot of what's going by on the screen here, but I know some of my friends in Winnipeg are watching. So it's a great music town, but I have to say, I never really climatized to the fairly extreme cold for a lot of the year. It's
No,
it's not.
I
Go ahead.
oh, I was just gonna say I don't blame you for that. I don't think anybody can climatize to the cold. I don't care where you're from.
I mean, it's a challenge. There's lots to do in the city, and my children live there, and they love it. They think of themselves as Manitobans. I mean, My son, who's 25 and an amazing guitar player, just did a gig in South Africa, actually, with a band called
Oh,
Intervals
wow.
from Toronto, and has an upcoming European tour starting in November. Um, he lived half of his life in Halifax, and he regards Halifax as his hometown, but he definitely is a Manitoban now. And my daughter, who's 18, she's absolutely a prairie girl, you know. I saw
Oh,
something
for
there.
sure. We got Tony Sire,
Sear,
Sear,
Tony
Sear.
Sear,
Uh,
yeah.
just complimenting you that you're a giant among bass players, and Bruce Dixon. You were
Yeah, man.
chatting
No,
about him.
that's so great. Yeah, well, Tony Sear is well, first of all, a very close friend and a lovely guy, a wonderful percussionist who plays with the Winnipeg Symphony, but he also is a drummer as well as auxiliary percussion. So he freelances, he does theater work, and he's also the president of the Musicians Local now in Winnipeg, I'm very happy to say.
Oh, very cool.
And of course, Dixon, Bruce still lives back in Nova Scotia, and I miss him. I miss him a lot. He's a great fellow, great bass player.
Did you hear that, Bruce? Bruce misses you a lot.
Yeah, man. You can call me Jake.
Jake, call you Jake. Okay, I can do that.
Right on.
Right. So quick here though, if you had a time machine, where in history would you go and why?
Wow, I don't think I'd leave where we are. I think we're in it'll always be a challenging time because we're what we are. We're humans and we're prone to behaving in all our great and terrible ways. But I think we're gifted and blessed to be born at this time in history. To have technology the way it is now, like if I was in my teens or my early 20s nowadays, I mean it's harder it's harder in many ways because of technology, but it's also a much richer existence because of it. So I love it here. What have we got going? Oh, Mike Fougier. Hey, Mike, how are you doing? Oh, yeah,
Good. He
Bruce
says,
Dixon. I'm sending flowers. Nice.
yeah. Then we got Chantel here who says, "Hi, Bruce," and a kissy face.
Yes, no, Chantal Aniski. Yeah. Hi, Chantal.
Um, so through your years, I mean, you got to play countless venues, to all everywhere. Do you have a top three by any chance of venues that you played anywhere in the world that stuck out to you that you will remember for the rest of your life?
Well, as far as venues go, the first time I played the Misty Moon in Halifax, which was a huge, gigantic rock bar. It started in a very tough part of town as a smaller bar and then moved locations. And the first time I played the Misty Moon was probably one of the most thrilling gigs I ever did. Um, and playing on Parliament Hill, I was a bassist with the Rankin family in the early 90s. And we played on Parliament Hill several times during Canada Day for up to maybe 100,000 people. And that was amazing. Biggest crowd I was lucky enough to play for. And probably one of the best shows that I can remember. We traveled over to Scotland to take part in the celebration of New Year in Glasgow, Scotland, and I got to play at the BBC there. And while we were there, I visited the studio and actually did a session where 10cc did their recordings, and
Oh,
that
very
was an
cool.
amazing thrill.
Well, that's definitely got
I
to be
know.
a memory that you hold on to and put in your back pocket, and you know.
Oh man, yeah. Well, I mean, I've been lucky to play in many countries and in thousands of different venues over the years. I've been in music a long time.
Yeah, that's definitely really cool that you get to travel all around and play historic gigs or at historic places. I mean,
Yep.
that's something that a lot of people are not fortunate enough to get to do.
Well, yeah, I definitely was. Because I'm an accompanist, I'm not a featured performer. I've been very lucky to be involved with people that have been active in the business. One guy, Bob Quinn from Nova Scotia, wrote and performed music that was used for tourism for Nova Scotia, and I traveled down the eastern seaboard of the United States into Europe, played in several different countries in Europe, promoting Atlantic Canada. But it was Bob really that was the guy who did it, and I was along for the ride.
Oh, that's cool. I'm just gonna cut off my nose if you don't mind. This is a little embarrassing. I don't I mean it happens. It's natural. But that's
Uh,
not how you're supposed to do an interview show. My
it's
nose
not
is
a,
supposed to wait till after.
it's not a problem for me. I love your nose, James.
Oh, my beauty sleep worked then.
Oh.
So, besides Streetheart, what were some other bands that you played with throughout the years?
I didn't play with many bands for long periods of time. I've primarily been a freelance bassist, but I was involved, like on the East Coast, I was involved with the Rankin Family and Natalie McMaster, the Barry McNeils. And on the West Coast, I played in the 80s. I lived in Vancouver for a while. I played with the Powder Blues Band for a while, and other than that, I did a lot of kind of one and two off shows, but with quite an amazing array of artists over the years. I played with Amos Garrett. If you know the song "Midnight at the Oasis," have you ever
Yeah.
heard that song? He's the guy that played the guitar solo in that song. He was kind of a not was he is he's a very interesting and cool musician that used to come to Halifax because he liked fishing. He'd come down. I was involved for several seasons with a show called The Ocean Limited on a national radio show on CBC. And we would accompany people that would be, guesting that week or whatever. And Amos was one of the guests. And so I ended up playing a bunch of club dates with him. And so Amos or Mark O'Connor, I met the wonderful musician from the States through Natalie McMaster. And she had a radio show as well. CBC, I think, has been very formidable and instrumental in the development of artists all over Canada. Well, it was when variety was more popular, and you'd hear more regional shows generated regionally rather than nationally. And I got to play on, literally hundreds of sessions at CBC in Halifax with many different artists. For me to try and name them, you'd be better off looking at my bio on the Streetheart site so you could see, there's quite a few anyway.
Well, Mike just commented here and said, "Don't forget about filling in with clam chowder. That's worth a
Oh,
mention."
that's well, you know what, Mike Fougier, a bit of a brainiac. There's a dude who's a marvelous bass player who's played with similar group of people, like the same kind of dudes will start different bands. And Clam Chowder was a pub band, rockin' pub band, and I got to sub with them a couple of times. And like I said, I wasn't really with anybody in particular, so I subbed with a lot of people, and I had a great time with them. Yeah.
Oh, very cool. Okay, quick. You're trapped on an island and you can only bring three things. What three things are you bringing?
Wow. Well, I'd say, my girlfriend, but that would be like restricting her to me in an island, and I don't think that'd be fair. So I'd probably, like bring, my original LP collection along with my stereo. That would be like 1,600 things.
There, we'll include that as one.
Yeah, right. Yeah, a pair of sunglasses and some suntan lotion.
There you go. That's what Natalie Belmont, that's Daniel Todd from Platinum Blonde, his arm charm. That's what she said. She's like, I got to bring suntan lotion, can't burn.
That's right. Uh, how
Do
about you,
do you
James?
have any,
What would you
oh,
bring to an island if you had three things that you'd bring with you to an
oh,
island?
oh, just put me on the spot. I never thought about it. I only think of the questions.
Yeah, right.
What would I bring? Well, definitely a guitar. There has to be a guitar.
Hmm.
Um, Probably an iPad, iPod, whatever, full of tunes,
Yeah.
so I can learn. Probably Black Dog would be the first song I would learn on this island.
Yeah, man.
Um, uh, and I would have to bring my girlfriend. I would have to confine her to me. I don't think she would like it very much, but hey, this is me.
I got you.
Actually, I retract my last statement. I'm going to bring tissue. That's what I'm going to bring.
You wouldn't have a runny nose on a desert island, though.
You never know.
Well, yeah, maybe from crying about being alone.
About being all alone. least I have my guitar and my music.
Yeah, has anybody ever said, what three things would you bring to an island? Somebody says, yeah, man, I'd bring New York City with me.
uh, so, do you have any words of wisdom or encouragement for your fans or anybody watching that might want to get into the same profession that you were very fortunate enough to do over the years?
Well, saying that I was fortunate is, I mean, that's true, but in a way it's a curse. It's not something, again, that, I didn't really choose to become a musician. I was able to do a lot of different things in school. I certainly had no problem with, science or any of the harder subjects, the non-art subjects. And at one time, I wanted to become involved with psychology, but, I think that you get involved with music because you have to be involved with music. You can't not be involved with music. And so I would say, try and learn as much as you can. I mean, many players that we aspire to be like never really had any formal music knowledge, but I think it would be a mistake to think that we can all be that inspired and talented. We just aren't. And so in order to maximize what we can do with our music, I think you should educate yourself as much as possible and then avail yourself of other musicians. Don't keep it to yourself. If you stay in your bedroom and you try and make music with your computer, it's fine. You can share it that way, but I think you really have to be physically around other musicians. Don't isolate yourself. That would probably be one of my biggest pieces of advice nowadays.
Yeah, exactly. Get out there and show the world your craft
Yeah,
and
well, share
maybe
it.
do it with other musicians, right?
Exactly. I can see some stuff going by here. Hey, Christina. Oh, yeah, right.
Got her.
Black
Stephanie
dog.
Harp says hello.
Hey, Stephanie.
I believe
Just
she got the opportunity to open for you guys when you guys came through the few times, eh?
well, we've had a lot of when Streetheart was together, we had many different opening acts. Some that knew the promoter or the show producer, or we used different artists around Winnipeg. Played a lot of shows in Winnipeg. It was always, I think, great for them to be able to play in front of an audience they wouldn't normally have, and also wonderful for us to be able to be. I always arrived early enough to check out the opening set, and yeah, there are lots of great musicians out there.
No, I agree. Is there any bands in particular that had opened for Streetheart that you went, wow, like just you were blown away by their set?
I would be hesitant to say anybody in particular. I really enjoyed everybody that opened for us. We had great bands. Well, I mean, we did many shows where there was no opener. I always preferred it when there was an opener. And I enjoyed all of the acts, really. I mean, we had everything from a single artist, like in Winnipeg, we had a couple of shows where we just would have one person playing guitar and singing opening for us, and other shows like in Edmonton or Vancouver where we would have a 5-piece or 6-piece band opening for us. And I really enjoyed them all. It was a lot of fun.
Right on. That's very cool. So we'll jump into Streetheart here now, because by the sounds of it, was Streetheart your first full-time band?
Well, Streetheart wasn't not a full-time band. Streetheart was a band that did probably anywhere between 20 and 40 shows in any particular year. And most of the shows were flyouts. Like I was lucky enough to be with a band that, if we had a gig in Edmonton, let's say at Century Casino, we didn't drive from Winnipeg to Edmonton. We would fly into Edmonton, do the show, fly home the next day, which was an amazing luxury. After spending, many years pounding across Canada in a van with a bunch of other people in a boatload of gear. So it was the longest I was involved with one band. I will say that, like on a regular basis. I was the band leader for the Rankin Sisters Christmas show, which was a seasonal thing where the three sisters would assemble the same group of musicians every December and for about 11 years in a row, and just do a 2 or 3 week blast in a particular part of the country, for Central Canada or Atlantic Canada, or whatever. And that was a longer time period, but Streetheart definitely was the longest I was involved with one group of musicians. And I'm very, humble and proud to ever have done that, because probably the best band I ever worked with.
You were with them for what, 10 years, if I'm
Yeah.
correct, right?
Yeah, I started in late 2007.
Very cool. How did that come about? How did you get that opportunity?
Well, I had moved to Winnipeg in 2004, and I was freelancing at the time, and had done just a small bit of playing with a drummer there named Tim Sutton. And Tim is the drummer with Streetheart, or was. And at the time, a great bassist named Blair DePape was the bassist for Streetheart, and he was caught in a position in his life where it was becoming untenable taking off for so many weekends at a time, or Thursday to Sunday kind of deal. So they needed a sub for a couple of shows, and Tim suggested me as the sub. So I did that, and then 2 shows, one in Nanaimo and one in Calgary. Shortly after that, Blair wasn't able to continue with the band, and I got a call to see if I wanted to play with them on a regular basis, which of course I did. And that's how
Right
that
on.
happened.
That's very cool. Very cool. So, well, through your 10 years of playing with Streetheart, what are some moments? Your buddy Bruce is taken off. We'll say,
Hey,
see ya, Bruce.
hey, Dexon. Have a great day, Bruce.
Um, but through your years of playing with Streetheart, what are a few moments that stand out to you? And again, one of those moments that you'll put in your back pocket for later and pull out and go, "Wow, that was incredible." Do you have any moments like that through the years you played with them?
Well, I mean, every show with Streetheart, you have to remember they have a very sort of cultish following in a way. I mean, people are so dedicated to their music in the most loving way. I mean, pretty much every show was a sellout with that band, which was one of the unique things about it. Everywhere we went, people wanted to, they want to see and hear you. And I would say that pretty much every show when we would play What Kind of Love Is This, we finished the song, and then Kenny would encourage the room to sing through a couple of choruses at the end. And of which, I was the only time in the show, although I did it a lot, I would take photos of the audience and later post them, on Facebook, or pass them to Jeff for him to pass them along. And so that event nightly, that was always inspiring. I mean, people enjoyed it. They knew what was coming, and they had a great time. We had a couple of really outstanding shows. Pretty much everywhere we played, we had a great time. But we did a show in Thunder Bay not that long ago that was probably one of the most seriously intense. The crowd was seriously rocking. And we also did at the Kenora Harbor Fest. We would play that probably every 2 or 3 years, where there are a couple or a few thousand people under one tent. And it's like that. I mean, everybody is so focused. It's like being at a sporting event. It was that kind of emotional focus. And so those things. And of course, probably my first show with the band, that was a monumental show. I was very keyed up. I'm normally a very low-key person, as well, my friends will tell you. And I was just on fire. It was great.
Right on. That's very cool. I mean, it's slipping my tongue here, and I'm gonna kick myself in the ass for not remembering. And I don't even want to say the wrong song either.
I have no
You
idea.
did your bass thing, and you were the center of attention.
Oh, Under My Thumb.
Oh, thank you. Jeez, yeah, yeah. Of course, I'd forget that one.
Yeah.
That was incredible. Watching your hands, man. Every time we saw you, and it was like, holy cow! Somebody could play bass like that. I mean, come on, you learned Black Dog your first song. I get it now, but
Ah. Well, you know what? I mean, playing Spider Eve's bass parts every night, I was given a lot of license to play, Jacobify them. But I really wanted to pay tribute to Spider's brilliance as a bass line composer, and try and play, fairly true to the original bass parts, except for his bass solo. I would play the first part of that solo, which is, legendary, big runs down, very quick 16th notes. But after that, although I learned it and I could play it, I just wanted to play something different because Spider still, that's him. That really was him, and I didn't want to take that away. So that
Oh,
bass solo
sure.
is like a part of Spider and part of me.
Hey, right on. That's definitely cool. You get to uh, you almost get to pay homage night after night to
That's
somebody,
right.
right?
Oh yeah, and I mean Spider became a very good friend of mine, and I teched his basses quite often, and we would trade instruments back or trade sell them back and forth, and really he's a lovely guy, very low key dude. When I see him play his Loverboy shows, I have to laugh. I love the performing side of him, but if people knew just how relaxed he is and what a genuine and pretty generous spirit he is, I think they'd be surprised. He's not at all your typical kind of rock star dude.
No, there you go. That's what I think a lot of celebrities and stuff, or the average people don't realize about celebrities and stuff like that. That you know, they're just low key. They're normal. I sit here on my computer day after day and do this and do that. Well, I'm sure you do that too. You know, um, I, I
Well,
I can personally say, sorry.
go ahead. Sorry.
No, it's all right. I was just gonna say, I don't know if you'd seen my little live video I did on my personal page,
Yes, I
just
did.
thanking everybody. You know,
Yes, and
and
thank
and
you
and
for your thanks.
pardon?
Thank you for your thanks.
No, of course. But that's where I say, like, Dan Todd from Platinum Blonde, from the three times we had to do one interview. One. That was all I needed, but we had to do it three times. And
Right
he was
on.
just so humbling and just so like, no, don't worry about it, man. Like, it's fine. And I mean, I'll admit, when I first met you and I first met Jeff and this and that, it was a very like, oh my God, this is a band I grew up listening to my whole life. And I mean, I consider you a good friend of mine now. And it's like it's very cool to look at it that way now that I see it clearly that you guys are just people. You guys are just people.
Well, being notorious doesn't mean anything about how to be a person or how to be a member of your community and try and contribute. I have a lot of friends who are involved with very selfless activities where they'll go out and do lots of volunteer hours. Unfortunately, I never have been able to find my way to do that in terms of like my time allotment. So, and when you look at somebody that's notorious, they're just in the public eye. It doesn't mean anything about them as a person, you know. Being a good
No,
person is just
exactly.
being a good person, and that has nothing to do with your profession.
No, exactly right. And I agree 100%. I don't even a few weeks ago, me and my band got to meet Gene Simmons and Shannon Tweed and stuff like that. I mean, a little nerve-wracking, a little,
Yeah,
I'll admit.
for sure.
But it was cool to have such an experience. I think we're frozen there.
Yeah, I still
Um,
have your audio though.
oh, okay, cool. No, that's all good as long as you got the audio. But it was one of those moments that I could meet people like that on a daily basis now and not be starstruck. Unless you were Angus Young, I really don't think I would be like, ah.
Yeah, well, of course, if somebody acts like they need special attention, I have to say that I'm not cool with that. We're all just people. Why wouldn't we recognize, the doctor that saves lives every day? Where are we standing at the door with signs with their names on it and buying pictures with their image on it? I mean, we're not. I think people can sometimes misplace what they think is important. And
No,
what's
exactly.
important is how you interact with somebody every day. I would say to my kids, I want to go through a day where everybody who comes in contact with me has a better day because I was in it. I did something that enabled them to have an easier time in their life, you know?
Exactly. Well, I think that's what any good person would want to do, whether it's make a little bit of a difference in somebody's life or make a big difference or even just in a day, like you said, just a simple smile at somebody can change somebody's day.
So true, James. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's we get it because we got the bulb thing going on.
Yeah, I'm trying to get some sunshine on here, right?
You gotta tan it there.
I'll have to turn
So
around soon and get my other son.
exactly, right? So I want to dive into obviously Kenny Shields. We had spoke
Yep.
earlier this week about it, and I'm gonna do my very best to not overstep my boundary on my questions. So if I do, I apologize ahead of time. I'm not here to do that or step on toes because it is what it is. We all as a fan of Streetheart and a band I grew up listening to. Thank goodness, I have the greatest parents in the world, and they taught me what real music is. Um, I personally will go back and say I will never forget the very first time I saw Kenny Shields and Streetheart and got to meet him. I was maybe only 10 years old, 11 years old. I mean, I was young, and he just seemed like the most humblest person in the world. You wanted his autograph, you wanted to shake his hand, you wanted a picture, you wanted a hug. He would
Hmm.
do it for you. He never seemed to shy away from what I gathered, and I remember the last time I saw you guys, which was I believe last October, July, something. It was last year.
Hmm.
And that was the last time I saw Kenny, and I never knew him on a personal level like I know you, but it was very nice to shake his hand again and be like, man, you are an inspiration, you are an idol. Come on, man, you live this awesome life, and your voice, his voice was a godsend, if you ask me. Like that was Streetheart. It was Kenny
Well,
Shields' voice.
I would say, any band that has a unique and strong lead presenter, which would be your front man, will be identified by the sound of their voice. So while yes, Kenny was synonymous with Streetheart because he had such a beautiful and very unique voice in rock, you have to remember that Kenny was just the tip of the spear. I mean, that band was the sum of all of the composing components and the instrumental parts, with Kenny as the icing on the cake, right? It's like that was a band that, or I mean, the band didn't do any writing when I was with it. We were playing their hits from the '80s. But really, after I found out who wrote the songs and how songs came about, I definitely see Kenny as kind of the face of the band, but I can't think of him as the band because I know now what Paul Dean and Matt Frenette and John Hanna and Spider and Daryl the amazing Gutile, Jeff Neal and Bruce Crump and Herb Ego, like all the guys that were in sort of the original recording versions of the band. They're all very present in the music. So while I think many people will hear Kenny's voice and think that he is Streetheart, he was just the visual identity and the sonic quality that people identified. But man, I mean, I listen to those songs. That music it'll never go away. It's just so good. Man. Anyway, yes, but Kenny was, as the face of the band, killer. Deadly front man and definitely very gracious with his fans, very loving towards his fans.
Yes, that's one thing that was very notable, whether it was on stage or off stage. He was very much like I said, no issue shaking your hand or signing something or simply giving you a
No.
hug and saying hi. That's what I gather. Do you have any stories about Kenny that you would like to share? Telling stories keeps memories alive, and I mean, Kenny Shields and Streetheart, let's face it, will be in the Canadian music scene probably forever because of what you guys and everybody accomplished.
Well, the my initial exposure to the band was that, Tim had recommended me as a sub for Blair, and the band never rehearsed. The whole time I was with the band, we never rehearsed. You just learned and made sure you had your parts together, and then we would go and run a song in sound check. And if it sounded good, we would play it, and if it sucked, we just, not. But I I was given a list of the songs and audio recordings of them. Fortunately, kind of live versions that Blair was playing on, so I could hear kind of what people were doing, which I did my homework on, and then I got together with Daryl, the keyboard player, Daryl Gutile, and in his basement, and just two of us ran through all of the songs. And I mean, it went well. Daryl can sing everything, and he could sing any of the parts and whatever while he was playing. And I heard later that it was kind of like what really happened was Tim suggested me as a sub, and Kenny went, "Well, how the hell are we going to know how this guy is?" So Daryl, check him out, play through the songs, and let me know. So we ran through the stuff, and then Daryl kind of got back to Kenny and said, "Yeah, I think he'll be okay. I think it'll be all right." And so Kenny's like, "Well, hell yeah, well, we'll give it a go." And then after the first show, I can remember Kenny going, "You're like," I don't know if you swear on your show, but anyway, "You're like all
Yeah,
right."
go for it.
You're
Go
like,
for it. This is not censored.
yeah, no, like that was fucking great, man. Like that was awesome. Glad to see you did your homework. And then it was just like business as usual. That's what you were expected to do. Kenny had a very high level of expectation only because he executed at a high level himself.
Exactly. Right on. That's definitely very cool. A nice little inside look on how you made it into the band without even knowing that was, I guess, technically your audition.
It was, really was. I mean, if I had blown it in Daryl's basement, it would have been history. Well, actually, I wouldn't be history. I wouldn't even be a part of Streetheart lore.
No, exactly, right? He would be like, Bruce Jacobs, who's that?
Yeah. And they go, "Oh, right, he was the band leader for the Rankin family," which in itself is
Yeah,
like an amazing thing. But I like being a part of, Canadian rock lore. I'm
of
very proud of
course.
that.
Now be honest, when you're driving around and a Street Heart song comes on the radio, do you turn it up and sing along?
Well, since I don't know any of the lyrics, no. I sing the bass parts. We did that amazing. We had an amazing show. The last performance for the band and it was without Kenny, and we had a great singer from Winnipeg named Paul McNair, or actually a couple of singers, Lisa Windsor and Paul McNair. Paul came into, we did run songs with him, for that show. It was at Shaw Park, and we had, I don't know, 7 or 8,000 people were at the show. Really, commemorating Kenny, but also, commemorating the band and really wrapping the band on that night. And, that was a show Kenny would have loved. I think he would have really enjoyed the fact that I don't think he really understood just how deeply dedicated his fans were, how much they appreciated how he sang and what kind of a person he was. It mattered to people that he was a decent man, and so, with the thousands of comments and everything that's transpired since Kenny passed away. I mean, I wish he knew, you know, I wish he had
Well,
known when he was alive.
he that age-old saying, well, now he knows and now he sees it and he can feel it because everybody now has a little bit of Kenny Shields with them, you know,
Yes,
uh,
absolutely.
which is beautiful. I honestly don't go a day without listening to Streetheart or Prism or Headpins. I like I said earlier in the show, I my parents very much raised me on rock and roll. And
Yeah.
it's all Canadian classic rock. I mean, my favorite band's AC/DC, but you want to go to the Canadian classic rocks, man, that list is endless because there's so much great Canadian classic rock that does go unacknowledged some of the time.
Well, a couple of things I wanted to say as you were speaking, and I was thinking about what I had just said. The when you mentioned, Streetheart song coming on the radio, I think probably what I experience is a reminiscence of the performance of that song. I have to say, being on stage with the band, it was first of all, it was I've executed at an incredibly high level every show. And Jeff Neal was really the motor of the band in many ways. And I can't hear, like the intro to Under My Thumb or Miss Plaza Suite. I can just see him on stage, generating energy and heat, just the intensity. Amazing player. And so the other thing I wanted to mention was being with Streetheart allowed me to share the stage with many bands that I had never really had a chance to meet before because of the festival dates we would do, where you'd see Prism or Honeymoon Suite, Harlequin, or I mean, I could name, 24 bands that we played with the Headpins, and to get to meet all those people was just like a dream come true, because I listened to all those bands as a youth, and was very honored to meet them. And then, of course, reminding myself as I meet them, man, they're just like me. They're just like regular people,
No, exactly, right. So, you beat me to the punch about talking about I believe that was August 29th.
Hey, my son just said hello. Hey, Sam, how are you?
Oh, there you go. Hi, Sam. Thanks for joining us here on IVIEW4U and checking out your dad. We're gonna get deep down and find out stuff about your dad that you don't even want to know. No.
I don't think so.
No, no, that's not what this show's about. I'm just kidding.
No, I mean,
But
Sam knows everything about me. I've never held anything back from him.
oh, well, then it's stuff that we don't know.
Yeah, right. Hey, Jamie.
But I believe that was in Winnipeg, like you said, August 29th, I do believe, if I'm correct.
That's right, yeah.
And of course, the videos were floating all over Facebook, and I had to watch every single one of them and just go like, what a night to remember, I mean, you guys, was it Harlequin? Was there, or was it Honeymoon Suite?
Honeymoon Suite. Well, the show
Honeymoon
opened
Suite.
with the Pumps Orphan, an great, amazing Canadian band. If you remember the song Miracle, I mean, that's all I knew about them at first. And once I met Chris Burke-Gaffney, I learned, just how entrenched he is in the central Canadian music scene. And they were followed by Harlequin, and then Honeymoon Suite, and then us, of course. And our set was divided between sort of the current band for the last 10 years, then giving way to the original band, which was everybody except Kenny.
Right on. That's a very nice way to say farewell to such a legendary project.
Yep.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I had met pretty much everybody except the Loverboy guys. I had been out to a show courtesy of Spider a couple of times to see the band. Excuse me, and it was very nice to meet them, and they were very down to earth and had lots of nice reminiscences of, kind of back in the day. For Paul, Matt, and Spider and Daryl to be together, I thought was just of course, a one in a lifetime thing, right?
Exactly, right. I don't know. I as a fan of Streetheart, and I mean, again, a band I grew up listening to. I can only imagine how you guys in the band feel. But I know, and speaking for myself and all the fans across Canada, I know it was a great loss, because Kenny was and is still a true Canadian gem. He is the definition of a true rock star. That he lived up to the expectation that if you said, oh, that guy's a rock star, I mean, I'm going to think Kenny Shields, because Kenny Shields was all that plus more. And it was a very deep loss to the Canadian music community. And I sent out my condolences to everybody in the band that I knew, because it's just a respect thing. It's that sucks for you guys. That hurts. I mean, and I wanted to make sure that you guys knew that we were all standing right behind you guys too, saying, hey, it's unfortunate, it sucks, but we're all here for you, because you guys rule.
Well, it was lovely to, of course, one of the things about it is that I got to, as soon as you would see somebody after Kenny passed away, they not only wanted to express their condolences, but they always, without fail, shared a part of themselves that was a part of Kenny. And so I got to hear probably, out of all the meet and greets I did with the band, which was all of those years after every show, I probably heard more personal stuff since Kenny died than in all of those other times put together, because people were, they're grief stricken, of course, but they were remembering why it was so important to them. Not just partaking of being out to see the band, but to actually realize what it meant and how deeply it was inside them.
No, exactly. I know that was always my favorite part. All right, here we go. Sha na na na, sha na 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 na.
Yeah.
But everybody in the room is like, wow, and 40 years later, they're they're still doing it. There's no Baileys in my drink,
Yeah,
Vince.
I saw
There's
that.
no Baileys in my drink.
You know, as as
No.
my as my girlfriend's daughters would want to say, "Hey, man, it's 5 o'clock somewhere."
There you go, touche. All right, well, I'm gonna take this interview to the liquor store with me, and no,
Yeah, right.
right on. Okay, well, do you have any closing remarks before we let you get on with your day here?
Well, first of all, thank you very much for the opportunity to be able to speak with you. It's an honor to be a part of your show, James, and thank you for your support. You and the many thousands of people, basically, you have a voice, a public voice that many people don't have. But the support through this time with the band, the finishing, time of the band. When Kenny passed away, we lost a friend, we lost a band leader, we lost the band. The band won't be performing, and at this point, I think we're just lucky to have that catalog of amazing music that he sang over as part of our life story. And so my remarks would be, although Streetheart was one of the hundreds of bands that I've been involved with in my life, it is probably, preeminent among those bands, and I'm very fortunate to have done it and to have been able to speak about it today.
Right. Well, thank you very much, Bruce. Really appreciate it. It's a little bit of an inside look on your life and where you came from, and it is truly an honor to sit down with you or anybody in the music scene and find out a little bit more about yourself and where you came from. I want to know, and I'm sure I'm not the only one who wants to know. So that's why I have IVIEW4U. We invite you on the show, especially Facebook. This is cool. I used
Yeah,
to do it differently. Jeff could probably tell you all about it. How it was a hassle for me to record over the phone because I had to have a recorder and my phone and the old-fashioned way.
yeah, of course, yeah.
But it's such a hassle. Now everything's through Facebook. I want to take advantage of this and people, come on here and they comment while we're talking. And that's my favorite part is that this is very interactive. It's not just hey Bruce, hey Jake, how's it going? How you doing? It's right now. People can see you, people can see me, and that's what this show's all about is letting them have a little personal inside peek at your life and I hope you're done your coffee.
I kind of had my last drain. If I had a straw, I might get more, but that's it.
Well, there we go. Bruce, thank you very much for joining us here today on IVIEW4U. We really appreciate it.
You're very welcome, James. Thank you again.
We will catch up very soon. And
All right, man.
you remember to rock and roll in a different way, all right?
You got it.
Right on. Thanks, Bruce. You have a wonderful day.
You too, James. Bye-bye.
There you have it, folks. That's IVIEW4U's Facebook Live interview with none other than Mr. Bruce Jacobs, guitar player. Oh, he plays guitar, bass player for Streetheart. That was a lot of fun sitting here over the last hour and diving inside. I have a challenge for somebody out there, though. Somebody who doesn't play bass. Get out, learn Black Dog. Learn it, tag IVIEW4U in it, and I'll hook you up with some goodies. But only if it's your first time playing bass. I don't want nobody who's professional. Right on. Come and join us here on IVIEW4U. Next week, I will release a date in a couple of days. I have none other than Mr. Tommy Chong, who will be joining us here. I'm excited for that one. That's all I can say is I am excited. I wasn't going to say anything. I wasn't going to tell anybody, I was just going to kind of go on Facebook Live and be like, hey, Tommy Chong will be joining us next week. Mr. Bruce Jacobs, Bassist of Streetheart, thank you so much for joining us today again. We really appreciate it here on IVIEW4U. We'll be back next week with Tommy Chong. Thank you for watching IVIEW4U this morning, and have a wonderful day, and remember to rock and roll in a different way.